So there are facilitators, again, that they show up to your town, they facilitate this medicine and they move on. I did that for years. I was part of that traveling circus. We thought that we were doing a good job and absolutely had made a lot of impact in people's lives. But the more I did it, the more I started hearing the stories of the people that were still trying to come back from those tough experiences because of this destabilization. So now, again, I'm an advocate for mixing this, again, this therapeutic modality in with this underground practitioners. If you were at my wife and I's talk earlier, we were talking about how we kind of blend the safety associated on some level with a therapeutic model, informed consent, safety principles associated with that, with this underground facilitation, and then we've created a little bit more of a unique model. For example, when I facilitate, I meet with folks at least 3 to 4 times in advance. Then we can discuss whether or not we're going to sit in the space, and then we have at least 3 to 4 integration sessions. If they don't agree to this, I don't facilitate for them. There's plenty of other folks that want that business. I don't need it and I don't want it. I want to guide folks through this experience safely and make sure they're going to have the maximum impact in a beautifully profound way that they can. So what is the experience like? I get asked this a lot, and to me it's like trying to explain a sunset to somebody that can't see, right? A lot of us talk about unity consciousness, or one of my favorites is unconditional love, right? I hear this term so often, unconditional love, right? And a lot of these are just these analytical thoughts, right? I was practicing in Buddhism and meditation and breath work for years prior to this experience. But the minute I had that experience, I knew that there was levels to this. For an instantaneous moment, there's about 4 to 5 minutes of this where you are in an enlightened space. I'm not saying I'm enlightened, I am not enlightened, but for a moment your ego is dissolved and you are one with everything and you are in this space of enlightenment. And I knew then and there, I'm like, this is what they're at the monasteries for 30 years trying to figure out, right? Where this is what folks are doing in their breath works and meditation. And it absolutely changed my ability to sit in those spaces and really get the maximum benefit from it. And to me, that is one of the most beneficial tools that folks can get from this experience. We always talk about the big experience, again, this unity with consciousness, this connection with source, whatever term feels right for you, God, heaven, source, consciousness, fill in the blanks, doesn't matter to me, it's all the same thing from my perspective. Once you have this experience, it's almost an impossibility not to change, right? To me, again, it was not just an ego death, but even neuroscientists, as they've done the research on it, say it's simulating a near-death experience. And for me, that absolutely was the case. And I remember coming back and thinking, okay, if I die, that's A-okay, right? That's why I'm a big advocate for specific cases using this in hospice, not just with the person that is nearing death, but also with the family members, right? When you're able to give these family members this insight or this perspective into the potentiality of where these folks may be going, you can absolutely ease that suffering a little bit. Now, of course, if something happened to my wife, I would still miss her. I would still be devastated, right? But it does provide a little bit of comfort with this perspective on what could be happening in that space. And again, this unity consciousness, just one with everything. And what I find super fascinating about this is regardless of the religion, the background, the race, it doesn't matter. Everybody that sat in the space, again, yes, everybody has a unique experience, but what you're seeing is a broad agreement on this connection with source, this connection with consciousness. And I find that fascinating. I mean, I sat in the ayahuasca space for 10 years, and if you were a Christian, you would come back and you had some sort of connection to that faith. If you're a Muslim, you came back and had a connection to that faith. But in this one, it seems to supersede all of that. And the reason is because your ego is absolutely dissolved. And when your ego is dissolved, all the programming, everything that you think is you, right? My wife and I talk about it all the time as we walk through this place. We look at the costumes. Like, I've got a costume, but I know it's a costume, right? I make a conscious choice of what I want to wear and why I want to wear it or how I show up, right? It's a very conscious choice. Most people are just completely unaware of this, and I mean this compassionately, and they're just moving through life in this programmed matrix, and they're just unaware that they are more than that. I mean, the majority of the time when I meet people, it's like, hi, I'm Kirby, nice to meet you. I know what's coming. It's going to be the resume of everything that they think that they are, right? I'm an accountant, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. And I'm like, those are all things that you do. They're all things that you have an interest in, but that isn't who you are under all of that. Who are you? And to have this brief moment, 10, 15 minutes of connecting with that true, authentic self, and to be able to come out of it and see your programming essentially as you're blown into the universe, which again is one of the most intense experiences ever. You know it's happening, and then you don't know. And then you start, next thing you know, you're coming to, and you can see your ego, all your programming being put back into place, piece by piece. And in that moment, you have an opportunity to see how you show up, why you say the things that you say, why the way that you dress is the way that you dress. Everything that you've ever been curious about yourself, you get to see remantled, re-pulled together into this egoic form. And with that, though, you have the opportunity to begin the deprogramming, right? Rewrite the code of who you think you are. Now, one of the negatives of this is also can produce a superego, right? A lot of folks have done it. They've had this unity consciousness. They feel like they've got this insight or this perspective that's beyond everybody else's. And unfortunately, I see that a lot in the facilitator space, right? And again, a lot of the traveling and talking I do is to train facilitators in this space. And almost more than half of the program, more than half of the training is to help them become aware of not just who they think that they are, how they show up in the space, any potential trauma that they have that they're now also injecting into the space, right? So we can prevent what I consider like the pseudo guru, right? That's what I see stepping into some of these spaces is the pseudo guru, and that concerns me, right? I try to not have any labels, which is kind of in its own ironic way, the ego's tricky, its own label of not having a label, right? But people could ask me all the, like, what are you? It's like, I'm just Kirby. I don't need any type of special title. I don't need any type of label to classify me as something. But again, as you're talking to most facilitators, it's like this understanding that, like when you connect with source, connect with consciousness, it's like, we're all extraordinary, right? We're all these things, we're everything, right? But people have this desire to try to be extraordinary. And I always say, why isn't the purpose just to be extraordinary? Can't you just be you with this level of humility and kind of move through life and move through the space with that type of perspective? So we'll talk about finding a facilitator in a minute here.